let's go through and break down what exactly is wrong and what vulnerabilities have been exposed to global supply chains, especially on the medical side, given the response we've seen to COVID-19 so far.
Thank you, Dominic. Complicated question, and India-U.S. relations are important in this, but not the only place where it is a difficulty. The problem, of course, is that everybody is competing for everything, given the rush with which the virus spread and the degree to which people are vulnerable. The death rates, of course, increasing rapidly, even with some places plateauing off. That means that such questions as testing and test kits, therapies which don't exist, although the president seems to be attached to hydroxychloroquine, a drug normally taken for malaria and a disease called lupus. I'm not the expert nor a medical professional. They'll have to tell you about it. But the president said there's no cost to this, and others have themselves said there may be deleterious side effects and people should be cautious. And the president has said take medical advice before taking it. But that means, in fact, the international community is in somewhat the same shambles, if I could be very explicit and undiplomatic, that the U.S. is, where, for example, each governor and many other institutions, including the federal government, are competing for short medical supply items like respirators, for example, PPE, and so on. And we've heard this endlessly. And there seems to be no overall basis for assigning scarce material to places that have currently the highest need, something that one would think with good logic and good medical advice ought to be done. The federal government has seemingly backed off and let the state governors take it. And indeed, a governor in Illinois, Governor Pritzker, said the other day that the federal government was obtaining material from China, but giving it to in between brokers who then obviously profited or took advantage of the shortage to try to sell to the highest bidder. And governors have consistently complained of being outbid. One would think that, particularly at home, we would be able to regulate that in some way so that people made a fair profit, but the material went where the highest need was, not where the highest capability to pay. The second question is internationally. The Secretary General of the UN has suggested cooperation and diplomacy. Others have begun to talk about this for dealing with several problems, not just the question of scarcity of medical supply, but perhaps more importantly, on the questions of how to pursue or prosecute the question of finding a new therapy and the all-important vaccine. Those are questions that require what we would call a united effort, and science breakthroughs have normally involved that kind of cooperation from my experience. So that doesn't exist, and one could see something like the UN with others playing a role, and there are four areas here one could think of right now,
sure,
which would require or value that cooperation, not world government, but as something that would in one way or another provide recommendations and advice on the best things to do and the right things to pursue. And those four things are testing, which I covered a while ago, therapy and vaccines and related materials and equipment
sure,
for treatment, and then the economic question of what to do now to fund all of this and how and in what way to recover or keep the economy as stable as possible, and finally working your way out in terms of an economic workout as the medical conditions improve.